Kunin mo yung sarili. I think from here, 6.6
Late na naman. Sino ba nandito? Mega love shoutout si Linley. Mega love shoutout si Easy. Mega love shoutout. TSO. Mega love shoutout si Sigi Franco. Mega love shoutout si Easy Talamera. Mega love shoutout si Rigor. Mega love shoutout si Akanta Kalipos. Mega love shoutout si Bella. Okay, magdadrive.
Both were contained in a matter of hours. This is all according to BB was.
Salamat sa inyong lahat. Mega love shoutout sa lahat. Si Akanta Kalipos.
A full accounting of the response will come soon, but he says it was an impossible situation once the winds picked up.
There's just nothing you can do. You can't even run fast enough to chase it.
Back at the National Weather Service office in Boulder, Jennifer Stark only had to look out a window to see what was happening to the east of them.
And we could see the smoke and the flames moving across the ridge.
She knew immediately that this was bad.
Oh, still snowing. Said it's bad.
110 miles.
And the
The
wind.
Marshall Fire would end up being the most destructive in state history. About 1,000
Okay,
homes
four-wheel
and
drive.
businesses lost. 2 people are still unaccounted
Baoy.
for. I'm Ben Marcus,
Ihi
CPR
ko karon.
News.
There is much more on last week's fires and what happens now at CPR.org. We are just a few minutes away from live coverage from the U.S. Capitol and remarks from President Biden on this anniversary of the attack on that building 1 year ago. We expect that to begin at 7. And this morning we are hearing from members of Colorado's congressional delegation who
Big
were
truck.
inside the building that day when rioters climbed over walls and broke down the doors. Our live coverage this morning starts at 7, and that's in about 10 minutes. I'm Mike Lamp. Good morning. This is Morning Edition on CPR News.
Support for CPR comes from Colorado State University Global, committed to providing career-relevant online bachelor's and master's degrees for working adults. Learn more about moving forward at csuglobal.edu. Solvable problems. C3AI. This is Enterprise AI. And by Fidelity Wealth Management, helping clients develop tax-efficient investing strategies. Investment minimum supply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
I'm here to broadcast you. First, the Federal Reserve tries to not surprise people, but some market participants somehow seemed caught off guard yesterday when the minutes came out of the Fed's last policy. And those notes showed that inflation worries had grown to the point that the Fed could hike interest rates fairly soon, as early as March. Now, here's how markets reacted. The NASDAQ, where a lot of tech stocks live, fell 3.3%, the biggest drop since February. If the Dow had seen that size of loss, it would have been a drop of about 1,000 points, which would get people's attention. The Dow, in fact, fell 392 points, 1%. The S&P dropping 1.9%.
Natatakot ako doon sa Patriver. Sa may ilog.
Open market committee meeting in December showed Fed officials raising concerns that
Ang daming lumangoy doon, nahulog.
the economy. They also say the Fed's goal of so-called maximum employment may be within reach, not because all the jobs lost during the pandemic have been recovered, but because some jobs may never be. Some analysts said the minutes suggest interest rates could start rising in March. Fed officials also discussed potentially moving to reduce the central bank's portfolio of treasuries
lobat.
and mortgage-backed
Oh, wow.
securities soon after rate hikes begin. That could further raise borrowing costs. All of this could dampen consumer spending or make corporate loans more expensive. That could in turn mean lower
Miga love shoutout sa lahat.
stock valuations, especially
Di ako
with
makabasa.
companies, harder to justify. I'm Novasapo for Marketplace. The Dow future is up 0.3% this morning. The NASDAQ future is down 0.3%. President Biden is set to speak in a few minutes on the insurrection at the Capitol.
Oh, there's a car
Here,
coming.
look at how
I just
the
go straight
ransacking
then.
of the Capitol changed corporate political donations. Corporate money did start to dry up. Why? Here's Marketplace's Justin Ho.
Corporations can make political donations through a company's political action plan, or PAC, says Paul Washington of the company.
Oh.
There are about 1,500 corporate PACs in America.
Tagal ako nito mabot.
and
Late na
the
late na.
vast majority of them suspended
Tagal ako
some
makarating sa
or all of their
work.
contributions in the wake of the events of January 6th.
new survey from the Conference Board found that in the time since, about 3/4 of those companies have started giving again. But London says they're being cautious.
We really need to link their corporate political activity to a corporate purpose and to a broader social purpose.
That's because corporations are under a lot of pressure to respond to their staff, who might not agree with a political donation. Paul Argenti is a professor of corporate communication at Dartmouth.
Their employees have been driving the need for the corporation to speak out in the first place, and politics is one of the key things that employees are keyed into.
Argenti says that's one reason why 1/4 of companies that paused corporate donations last year haven't started giving again.
That's a big deal. You know, that's not something to kind of gloss over and say it's business as usual.
That said, corporations have other ways to make political contributions. Anna Masolia at Open Secret says companies can give money to nonprofits and trade associations. They can also give to so-called dark money groups, which aren't required to reveal their donors.
With dark money groups, you don't have anywhere near the level of disclosure as the spending through corporate PACs or as political contributions generally.
Masolia says shareholders have been pushing corporations to avoid that kind of political giving. And it's not clear whether giving to dark money groups has picked up in the last year.
Because they can just choose not to voluntarily disclose that information.
The Conference Board found that almost half of corporations think political contributions this year will be even more challenging than in 2021. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
The Post Office is asking for 120 more days before it requires postal workers to get vaccinated or tested once a week. It's not clear if that waiver will be granted. Post Office is worried about staffing if the rule means people will quit or face discipline for violating these rules. Congressman Gerald Connolly, the Democrat from Virginia and critic of the Postal Service, said in a statement that, quote, vaccines save lives, sick postal workers, not shots in the arms, is what will hurt the Postal Service and its customers.
Ayan yung snow parang putik na oh.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by the Candida Fund, working to advance individual dignity and sustainable
Pero
communities
yan
through
ang
investments in
madulas.
transformative leaders
Yung
and
parang putik
ideas.
na.
Learn more at kendedafund.org. And by the United States Postal Service, offering postage
Big love
stamps for
shout out
purchase
si
at more than
Akanta Kalipos.
4,000
Big love
supermarkets,
shout out
drugstores,
si
office
Silin
supplies, and
Lee.
wholesale
Pakaw
clubs.
Vlog. Big love shout out
At
si
Gadgets
Silin
Galore,
Show
otherwise known as
Vlog.
the annual Consumer Electronics Show, now
USA.
open in Las Vegas, the unveiling of the sublime to the
Big love shout out
ridiculous.
Villa
Denver
Vlog.
has
Big
a
love
smart
shout out Miss
bathtub
Wonderare.
ready for you after a long day.
Big love
BMW
shout
has a
out
prototype
Lady
electric
Sha.
car that can slightly change the
Oh,
color
bulldozer.
of its exterior, 50 shades of gray, apparently. And I like this thing from a company called Naveto
Whoa,
that looks
whoa,
like a Bluetooth
whoa, whoa.
speaker that fires ultrasound at your head so you can listen without headphones and
Parang
not disturb
gustong
those
umikot
around
ng
you
kara.
much. There are smart light bulbs that can monitor homes for people's health, heart rate, or if anyone's taken a fall. Now, because of COVID, CES has been shortened, with some exhibitors going virtual. For the
Big love
convention
shout out
industry, this is a
Chef
rocky start. Here's
Big love
Marketplace's
shout
Matt Love.
out.
Tech lovers worried about
Parang nandyan
Omicron
yung Jerome.
can attend
Ayan yung
CES
bulldozer.
virtually. Event organizer Gene Foster says
Binubulldoze
the
nila
online
yung
version even has a
snow.
substitute for those awkward networking receptions, a platform called
Ayan
Meet.
na naman.
People can chat about specific topics, and it's
Ay,
based
ang
on
daming
profiles and
bulldozer.
recommendations for, again, for people coming together.
Of course, that means no riding John Deere's fully autonomous tractor or trying out other gadgets. And the more conventions go
Okay,
digital, the
stop
more
light.
CES misses out on its biggest revenue.
Big love shout out
Space the
Ronnie.
exhibitors rent from
Ano
us.
Will the
official.
ongoing pandemic lead companies to cut travel budgets permanently? The toolmaking key Eric Mikasa says it's not
Tandahan, huwag mong
abandoning the
banggain yung
strategy
ano.
completely.
Big love shout out
intend
Sisi
to have a big presence
Mercedes.
at trade shows.
In 2 weeks, Mikasa will be in Vegas for World of Concrete. He says Hilti is sending more employees there than ever before.
Ay,
I'm
kulba
Matt
oy.
Levin for Marketplace.
And I'm David
Pag
Brancaccio.
binigla mo
You're
yung
listening to the
ano, yung
Marketplace
gas.
Morning Report.
Halimbawa nasa stoplight
From
ka.
APM, American
Pag
Public
binigla mo
Media.
yung gas, iikot siya.
This is CPR News, 90.1 FM,
Go-office
KCF
siya pag
Denver,
ikot.
1490 AM, KCF
Parang ayaw ko tuloy
Boulder,
mag-drive.
on HD at 90.1 FM at CPR.org, and on your smart speaker, say play
Madulas siya
CPR
kasi
News.
mas madulas yung tinanggal yung snow. Kasi putik na, putik na.
an opening for a senior recruiter. To apply or to learn more about the position and other available career opportunities, visit our careers page at cpr.org/jobs.
Yung takbo ko, agoy. 20 lang. Or 15. Andito na, enter na ako sa Platte River. Oh my G.
Special coverage from NPR News. President
Pero
Biden
nandito
is at
pa
the
ako sa
Capitol
kabila
this
ng
morning.
plus.
He will
Wala
speak
ako doon
shortly
mismo
in
sa my
Statuary
river.
Hall, which is a hall of membrane. Statues stand around the room depicting figures of the American past.
Mamaya pag
And
uwi,
memories
doon
of
ako
one
mismo
year
sa may
ago,
Platte River.
January
Andyan
6,
yung Platte River.
2021, still linger. The President and Vice President Harris will talk of the attack that was the culmination then of a months-long drive to overturn a democratic election. I'm
Dito
Steve
talaga ako kinakabahan sa ano,
joining us this morning
may
to help
river.
make us make sense of all
Kasi
this.
maliit lang yung daanan.
NPR national political correspondent Ryan Lucas, NPR justice correspondent Franco Ordonez, NPR national political.
Tapos yung mga marka sa kalsada, hindi na makikita. Bahala ka na sa buhay mo.
Good morning. All right, Franco, let's start with you.
Ayan yung
what do you
bulldozer.
expect to hear from the president and the vice
Ang
president?
laki yan yung bulldozer na yan.
You know, I think they're going to speak about the threat that they see for democracy and the importance of protecting it. Vice President Harris, she's expected to say that it was not just an assault on the Capitol, but an assault on American freedom and values.
Please,
And
don't.
President Biden is going to ask whether Americans are going to accept political violence as a norm. According to an excerpt, he's going to say, quote,
Bahala na,
"At this
dahan-dahan
moment,
na talaga
we
ako.
must
Bahala kayo.
decide what kind of nation we are
Huwag
going
niyo
to be."
akong pitukan.
And I think we'll also
Akong
let me-
pakialam.
Let me just interrupt to say that people are now coming
Yung
up
iba
with
kasi
plenty
mabila.
of
Ayun na oh, ayun na oh.
elected
Umovertake na oh.
to the center
Pag
of
yan,
the floor. We would
umakyat,
expect fairly
bumaba
soon
sa
to hear
ano,
from the
Platte
president
River.
and the
Bahala
vice
siya.
president. We're told, if I'm not
Ang hina
mistaken,
ko
that
kasi.
Vice President Harris will go first, but nobody's in the room yet. We'll go back to
Pakiramdam ko
Franco.
kasi umiikot eh.
Sure. Yeah. No,
Umiikot
oftentimes
nga
the
ang
Vice
gulong.
President will go first. You know, I was just adding that. You know, I think
Pag
we're
lumampas
also
ako
going
ng
to hear
20,
from the president
umiikot
about
eh.
how this impacted him personally. I mean, he spent more than 30 years in the Senate.
Sila sanay
in
na
those
sanay.
hallways where he's walking right now. And White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said yesterday that he watched the attack in horror, and he continues to be dismayed by the attempts of some politicians to misinform
Kahit sanay na
the
sanay
public.
sila,
Walsh, as the
kaya nga
president,
mayabang
we see from
na,
the video
kaya
feed, turns the corner towards Statuary Hall,
Maano
accompanied
doon.
by Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader. Can you describe
Diyan
what it's like
nagkakaroon
to
ng
be
ano.
around the Capitol today?
It's very
Disgrasya
subdued up
kasi
there today.
mayayabang.
You know, it's a big contrast to what it was like a year ago. There was a lot of
Nadidisgrasya nga ako na mahina lang yung
House and
takbo
Senate
ko.
in session to move to do their constitutional duty to count the electoral
Ayan na naman yung
results.
bulldozer.
But today the House is not in session. There are no votes in the Senate. You know, most lawmakers are not in Washington. You know, a lot of Republicans, Senate Republicans, are heading to Georgia for
Ayan
a
yung
memorial
bulldozer,
service
oh.
for the late Senator Johnny Isakson. So it's just sort of, it feels very somber. There's
Meron
a lot of
talaga
security
minsan
around, you know, saw
ang lakas
mostly a
ng
lot of police
snow
officers on my way in
galing sa
to the
taas.
Capitol. I walked by
Tapos
Michael
punong-puno na
Fano,
yung
who's
ano.
the former
Kailangan
Metropolitan
ihinto
Police
ka.
officer who's testified before
Ayun na,
the
green na
January
yung
6th
light.
committee about
Baka
the
red bago ako
attack
makarating.
that day. It just feels like,
Oh,
you know,
wow,
the
wow,
folks who
wow,
are
wow.
here to
See,
remember,
sabi ko,
are
nag-green na
treating
eh.
it as a
Ako
very
nag-red na eh.
solemn occasion, but
Hindi ko
otherwise it's
nabutan.
kind of a ghost town.
You know, it's hard to imagine asking if Congress
Ayaw
has
ko
been more
magpabilis.
partisan the
Iikot
past
yan.
year than in previous years. You know, could it be more partisan? But let me just pose the question. Do things feel different the past year than they did before January 6th?
They definitely do. I mean, the physical damage to the building has been repaired. You know, you see all the windows that were broken in, you know, new windows up. But the relationships are really frayed. And I
kabado.
would say it's more in the House. You feel the tenor just really different.
Ito ang
than in
mahirap
the
dito
Senate.
sa ano,
In
US
the
sa
House, you know,
mayroong
members have to go through
snow
metal
na
detectors
state.
when they go vote on the floor. And it's just sort of, you know, the
Sana
lack of
mag-snow
trust,
Friday, yung Friday
has
night,
really, I
yung
think,
walang
maybe
pasok.
even increased in the last year. You know, some lawmakers say they still have friendships across the aisle, but they have suffered.
Ngayon lang,
last year.
pang ilang snow na ba to? Pero ito yata ang pinakamarami.
Majority of House Republicans voted to
Eh, kasi yung
challenge
nag-snow
or
sisi,
vote
wala
to
kasi
overturn
akong
the
work
results of
nun.
the Democratic election, voted not to accept them in any case.
Kaya hindi ako
Effectively
nag-drive ng
endorsing the
ganito.
lie. that there was something wrong with the
Ano,
results. But on the Senate side, it was a much smaller
Ngayon parang
minority
ano
of
parang
Republicans who did that. The vast majority of Republicans voted to uphold the election.
parang ilang inches to.
Yeah.
Marami.
But
Kapal.
don't forget that what they were doing when they voted to overturn the election
Parang 1
was
feet yata
exactly
to.
what the violent insurrectionists
Oh, maybe
were
6
asking them to do.
inches. Ay, ano.
January 6th was an attempt by political violence to overturn
Mga
a
6
free and
inches
fair
siguro.
election, an election that the independent judiciary, the referee in a democratic system, had determined was free
Bilis
of
ng takbo
fraud.
nila.
So that's what
Tapos
happened last
andyan
year.
na, may
And what
mga
Deirdre's
ano na,
talking about now is it's almost as if January 6th is an anniversary that is also partisan. In other words, vast
Ayaw ko naman
numbers of
pabilisan agad.
Republicans have chosen not to be there. And one of the things that President Biden will talk about in his remarks about whether the attempt on January 6th will now succeed through legal means elsewhere. At one point in his speech, he's going to say, quote, "Are we going to be a nation where we allow partisan election officials to overturn the legally expressed will of the people?" That is the purpose
Bahala kayo,
of
overtake
many
kayo.
laws that are being considered or passed in states around the country, and it certainly was the purpose of the January 6th insurrection and the votes of all those Republicans that you just mentioned to overturn the will of the people.
I want to turn to our other correspondents in a moment, but first I just want to ask you to put this in perspective.
Wow,
Can you
wow.
Can you speak to those listening to us who may feel, with some truth, with some justice, that
Parang
American
naka-off
politics,
yung harang,
unfortunately,
hindi
has
ko
often been violent over the years? There have often been many kinds of violent protests, and they may feel that this is just another one. What
It's
is it in the
okay.
minds of the critics
It's
of
okay.
January 6th that make this far more than an ordinary protest, or even an ordinary deadly
Dito puting-puti, oh.
It wasn't an ordinary protest. It was a
Wow.
protest to overturn the legally expressed democratic will of the people. That's the most fundamental, that's the
Uy,
core
ay
of
ko
our
bulldoze.
democracy, where voters get to pick their
Akala ko bulldoze.
leaders, not
Kaya ko
violent
yung
insurrectionists.
paikot na daanan.
And, or a
Doon
minority
dumudulas
party
eh.
that chooses to
Gusto ko
ignore
straight
the
lang.
will of the people. This is a kind of
ikot-ikot dito
crisis
eh.
moment for American democracy. I think the president is going to speak to that. And that's why this is different. This isn't just a violent protest where somebody throws a rock through a window. This was an effort egged on by the President of the United States, and the January 6th Commission is busy determining exactly what his involvement was and what the effect of it was,
Oh, tingnan mo
to
yun.
stay in
Ano,
power
takbo
through
yung ano, mababait
undemocratic
sila, oh.
means.
Mahina yung takbo.
Accepting the result of an election, whether you win or
Saka
lose,
distance.
is the only way that democracy survives, and all that was
Kasi
called
pag
into
nag-break ka,
question on
hindi
January 6th.
di yan
Ryan
naghihinto
Lucas, the
agad.
President, Vice President, heard speaking from the National Statuary Hall.
Mababait tong dalawa.
Insurrectionists and
Nasundan ko.
rioters got into it. You've been following these cases
Hina
very,
lang.
very closely. Where do they stand? Those people? Well, this is a massive.
Yung mga geese, mga duck. Ewan ko ba hindi
And I have to
nagpo-frozen.
interrupt Ryan Lucas, I'm so
Hindi
sorry,
na,
but
ano,
would you like
hindi
to
yata
know that
giniginaw
President
sa
Biden and
river.
Vice President Harris have just walked into
Nandun
the
sila.
Statuary Hall. Here's the Vice President.
including dates
Parang na-frozen pero buhay naman.
remind all who have lived through them where they were
Ang dami.
and what they were doing.
You know.
When our
Kaso lang din yung
democracy
makikita.
came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a
Siguro yung
place
duck sa Pilipinas,
in our
pag ganito,
collective memory.
patay. Frozen siguro sila.
December 7th,
Duck at saka mga
1941.
geese,
September
ghost.
11th, 2001. And January 6th, 2021.
Pero walang gumagalaw,
On that
nakaano
day,
lang sila, oh.
I was not only Vice President
Katago
elect,
yung mga ulo.
I was also a United States Senator. I was here at the Capitol that morning at a classified hearing.
Pang drive ko papunta sa ano, pag walang snow yan, 12 minutes lang. 12 minutes.
I was
Ngayon,
there.
ewan ko lang.
The gates of the Capitol were breached.
Ilang minuto na.
I had left. But my
Nalalaman
thoughts
ko yan.
immediately turned not only to my colleagues, but to my
Hindi
staff,
pala kasi naka-start na tong video
who
ko
had been
kanina.
forced to seek refuge in our office, converting filing cabinets into barricades. What the extremists who roamed these
O-overtake
halls
ako.
targeted
Kasi,
was not only the
liliko yung
lives
isa.
of elected leaders. What they sought to
Sige,
degrade
go.
and
Susunod ako
destroy
sa'yo.
was not only a building, hallowed as it is. What they were assaulting were the institutions, the values, the ideas that generations of Americans have
Finally,
marched,
I'm
picketed,
close.
and shed blood to establish and defend.
Naliko na sa
On
war.
January 6th,
Kabado pa
we
rin.
all saw what our nation would look like if the
Oh, looks like
forces
my
we
one
seek
of my co-workers is
dismantle
not gonna
our
work.
democracy
She's not here.
are successful.
Oh, ayun na, hindi ko na makita yung
Lawlessness,
saan na yung linya dito sa
violence,
park.
the
Ah,
chaos.
smoke. Can't see it.
What was at stake then and now is the right to have our future decided
Tabingi
the
yata.
way the
Tingnan ko nga saan yung linya.
describes it. By we, the people, all people. We cannot let our future be decided by those bent on silencing our voices, overturning our votes, and peddling lies and misinformation. By some radical faction.
Hindi ko makita yung linya.
Newly resurgent.
Hindi ko pa rin makita yung linya. Bahala sila tabingi.
Run old and deep. When I meet with young people, they often ask about the state of our democracy, about January 6th. And what I tell
Thank
them
you, Lord. I'm
is
here.
January 6th
Karating din. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Hindi makita eh. Kiniskis ko eh. Ayaw ko kung tabingi. Oh. Wow! Hello. Good morning. Oh. You have a lot of snow?
Yes.
Say hi.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you.
Are you on the phone?
I'm on YouTube.
Oh, on YouTube.
I'm a vlogger. He's laughing. Oh, wow, wow. I dance. Balik nga ako. Nadulas. Madulas yung ano ko pa. Linisan ko muna. Nadulas ako doon. Nag-ice yata yung shoes ko. Kalukuhan. Hindi ako makalakad doon. Buti lang hinawakan ako sa mama. Paano yan? Hindi ako makalakad sa loob. Shit. Oh my gosh. Kala ko ligtas na ko doon sa kalsada, sa loob ng mas malala. Tingin. Dahan-dahan. Kalukuhan yan. Ang ganda ng kusina. Oh. Kinabahan ako doon na. Mabuti hinawakan ako sa mama. Kalokohan yan. Muntik na ako doon. Diyan ako aakyat mamaya. Sige, bye-bye. Salamat sa inyong lahat.